Good morning. Welcome to Philadelphia Baptist Church broadcast. And Lord willing, we may have about a week and a half of this left, and we'll be having services again. Looking forward to that. In the meantime, we'll continue on like this. And last week we had Dr. Estep taught the Sunday school, and Brother Spurgeon brought the message. But if you remember what I was talking about a week earlier, some people's favorite topic, money. And I know when I say that, to teach on or have a study on money, people think it's crass for maybe a preacher to do that. Well, I think preachers spend way too much time talking about money and getting taken up an offering. We don't even take up an offering and haven't for 15 years and don't plan on doing that. Anyway, but I think it's important that we understand everything that the Bible teaches is important, and the Bible teaches about money. And I think it's important that we have a good understanding. And I've kind of reworked some things and added some things, took out some things. Anyway, let's continue on with that. And the last thing we talked about, and I took you to Exodus chapter 35. I want you to turn to Exodus chapter 25. And in Exodus chapter 25, verse 2 and 3, we find almost the identical quote from what you'll find in Exodus 35. In other words, it's recorded twice. And I saw something there, and I thought, oh, sure as the world, everybody's going to think I'm a dirty, rotten liar. I was somehow tried to twist the truth, and in a way, I can see that. I shouldn't have applied it in totally the way I did, but I'm going to back up what I said last week. But he says there in Exodus 25, verse 2 and 3, "Speak unto the children of Israel that they bring me an offering. Of every man that giveth it willing of his heart, ye shall take my offering. And this is the offering which ye shall take of them, gold and silver and brass." Now, it goes on to list about a dozen more things, everything from skins and, probably even, I'm not all sure what all's on the list, just a ton of different things that are on that list. And I realized after I read that last week that those things are for the construction of the tabernacle. And I was applying it as what God believes is actually money, what real money is. And that verse really does not teach perfectly what I was trying to get over, that what God recognizes as real money. So let's go to the New Testament, to Matthew chapter 10, verse 9. And this verse kind of seals the deal as far as understanding what God recognizes as real money. Now, everything, in a sense, every commodity in the world is some kind of money. It's a type of money. It's just not something that you can transfer one to another very easily. Remember we talked about, can't carry a couple cows in your pocket, Somehow you got to convert that wealth into something that you can carry around or transfer. And in Matthew 10:9, he says, "Provide neither gold nor silver nor brass in your purses." That's pretty clear, isn't it? Gold, silver, and brass. There's three metals there. We have a God that is composed of a Trinity, and He chose a money system that's composed of a Trinity. And each one of those metals you can look at perfectly. That gold represents the rich, silver the middle class, and brass or copper. That's what brass is. It's a combination of copper and zinc. Pictures the poor class. And of course the widow's mite was brass. I think they've got one, you can look at on the internet, it was made of brass. That's a poor man's metal. Silver is a poor man's gold. That's the middle class's. Silver's much more affordable. It's about 20. Well, right now it's about 80 times or 100 times less than gold. But silver's much more affordable for the middle class. Gold is a rich man's metal. So you have those three metals, and they are mentioned a lot in the scriptures. Gold is mentioned 427 times in the Bible. Silver is found 321 times, and brass is found 126 times. It's interesting how the ratio between between each one it's considerable. And look at I got a couple other verses here that deal with Matthew 17:27, that deal with these metals. I thought this was interesting here, and I've mentioned this before. There's some things that I haven't mentioned here, but a lot of this I have mentioned before. All these things, I've studied some of it in the past, and I think we're being hoodwinked. I think we're being deceived. Well, we have been deceived, and when you finally realize, and I want to give you a little testimony here too of something that happened this week that really opened my eyes to how ignorant the public is. In verse 27, he says, notwithstanding, this is Matthew 17:27, notwithstanding, lest we should offend them, go thou to the sea and cast a hook and take up the fish that first cometh up, and when thou hast opened his mouth, thou shalt find a piece of money. That take and give unto them for me and thee. And I don't think it was a wadded up $100 bill. It's a piece of money. Why? It's some type of precious metal. I don't know if it's gold or silver. All depends what the taxes were in that day. But it paid for him and for Peter. So that's just one more reference there. Also, look at Acts chapter 3, verse 6. Peter talking to the man laying at the gate. He's lame and he's asking alms. He's begging for a handout, and Peter is not going to give him a handout, but he's going to give him a hand up. And I believe that's what I believe all church people should practice. Not so much a handout as a hand up when it comes to the poor. It says, then Peter said, silver and gold have I none, but such as I have give I thee. Well, why do you think he mentioned silver and gold? Now, I'm sure the poor man probably had a little can there full of mites. Where people threw in some mites and everything. But Peter said, silver and gold have I none. He goes, I can't give you that. He says, in the name of Jesus Christ of Nazareth, rise up and walk. So, when talking about money, he says silver and gold, because that is real money. Gold and silver and copper are the universal currency of this planet. That's all there is to it. It is the universal currency of this planet, and you can't get away from that. Look at one more reference here in Acts chapter 20. Acts chapter 20, verse 33. He says, where Paul says, I've coveted no man's silver or gold or apparel. Evidently, that's silver and gold, and the next thing comes up is apparel. He said, I've coveted no man's silver or gold. So, so what does all this mean? Well, when our government first began to set itself up, they had the Coinage Act of April 2nd, 1792. And here's what it reads in section 9. And be it further enacted that there shall be from time to time struck and coined at the said mint coins of gold, silver, and copper of the following denominations, values, and descriptions. And it gives this, there are all kinds of denominations mentioned there, stuff that we don't even have today. I think you could find a $50 bill, 2.5. But they could, in coins, you can kind of mint that if you wanted to. You could strike anything you wanted based upon weight. But you notice gold, silver, copper. That is legally how our government should have coined things. But obviously that's not true anymore. The reason they're currency, they're precious metals. Gold is not in abundance. Let me read you this from National Geographic, published in January 2009. It says, in all of history, only 161,000 tons of gold have been mined, barely enough to fill 2 Olympic-sized swimming pools. More than half of that has been extracted in the past 50 years, and they haven't gained that much more. Now the world's richest deposits are fast being depleted, and new discoveries are rare. So 161,000 tons of gold is all that's been mined since Genesis 1, There's no more to be had. That's what makes it precious. And the fact that gold is, it's an exceptional element. Very little reacts to it. You can bury it in the ground and dig it up 300 years later, still have a shine on it. Nothing degrades it or corrodes it. Evidently, about the only thing I can see that the Bible talks about your gold and silver being cankered, radiation will do a trick on it. And it may be that once it's radioactive that it's no longer worth handling. Anyway, the price of gold, because remember, we're no longer on a gold standard, and we'll get to that, but the price of gold, which stood at $271 an ounce on September the 10th, 2001, if you can imagine, an ounce of gold was less than $300. In 2001, has reached briefly $1,917 an ounce on August 22nd, 2011. 10 years later, it was up to $1,900 an ounce. It's presently at $1,725 an ounce. It's not too far off its high. Now, it fluctuates because there's a lot going on in the market that caused that. And because our money is not tied to it, they manipulate that thing. And there's a lot of things that manipulates it. You got physical metal. You got what's called ETFs. Is that electronic transfer or something? And you have something else. ETFs. There's three things that affect that. And a lot of it is just paper. You know, the people buy stuff and it's just on paper. They don't physically own it. The physical part's very little of that. But once that other part goes away, then you can start seeing what the actual physical price. So it fluctuates quite a bit, but it has value. And that value never goes down. And as the currency devalues, gold increases in value. So silver is nearly 20 times more abundant than gold. And it's constantly being consumed in manufacturing, technology, and medicine. I could not believe how many things I found on the internet where silver is used, especially in medicine. I'm not going to go off on a rant. I got so angry at what I read, some things I heard, something on Fox News, it made me so angry I couldn't see straight. So I went to studying and researching. Anyway, I'll get to that some other time about the liars that lie about how that silver has no medical benefit. They're out of their minds. I found volumes of it. I'm talking about scientific data. Silver throughout history has been the common man's currency, poor man's gold. Silver hit a low of $4.07 an ounce in 2001. I think that's when the Hunts brothers, I think they dumped a couple truckloads, I don't know, semi-load of silver on the market and brought down the price, $4.07, and it went up to $48 an ounce in 2011. I remember that very clearly. Anyway, now it's around $15.28. It's been going, as the market went down, it dragged silver and gold with it. Gold is just about rebounded. Silver's lagging, but usually silver is very volatile. It's a very volatile thing when you purchase it. Gold does this, kind of stays with the economy, and silver does this as it's going up. But it can mean more profit or more loss based on when you sell it, I guess. But anyway, let's talk about what we have now for the situation that we have now. It's called a fiasco money system of the United States of America. And what fiat means is it's just paper. There's nothing backing it up. And give you a little history when that happened. I've got here, when Nixon closed the gold window on 15th August 1971, the world entered a new era. For the first time in history, all the world's monies were unbacked fiat currencies adrift on a sea of floating exchange rates. So as of 1971, officially, we were on a fiat money system along with the rest of the world. America abandoned the gold standard on June the 5th, 1933. By June the 4th, 1963, Congress repealed the legal foundation for silver certificates. I'll show you what those are. I guess I can tell you about this. I was at this sub place that Robbie was telling me about. They make good subs, and when you walked in there, they had everything cordoned off. You had to put your money in a tray, and all kinds of things. But there was a guy in there, and that guy was the regional director, not the regional manager. He was the regional director of the whole area. And he was telling me that, that they weren't making any money, but they were staying open because it's easier to stay open and continue than it is to start up from fresh. And that makes sense when you think about perishable product that they have. But anyway, and we were talking this and that, and people getting their checks and a lot of people were going to suffer because they weren't going to get enough to cover what they were losing out of it. And that's for sure. But he said something about, all that money. And I said, yeah. I said, pretty soon you print all that money, you got to pay the piper. And he said something to me and I was just astounded. He said, yeah, there's got to be enough gold in Fort Knox to back up that money. And that just took me back. I thought, you must not be reading the front of your money. I've got some money here. I got a $5 bill that says Federal Reserve note. I have a silver certificate. I have a silver certificate right there. And you know what it says on it? It says $5 in silver payable to the bearer on demand. See, that $5, I could take that, at the time, I could take that to the government and say, I want my silver. And they would have to pay me in physical silver. So this actually is money because there's something backing it up. This says Federal Reserve note. You see what's backing it up? Nothing. Air. Nothing backing that up. Here's a silver certificate dollar. Says the same thing. $1 in silver payable to the bearer on demand. And then there's the Federal Reserve note. I mean, surely you can see what they did. They gave you something that was backed by real money for something that's backed by nothing. But the confidence of this country, we know how confidence is, it can erode. So I got those. I guess they're still legal tender. This one even looks weird on the back. Look how that is. You got a close-up of that. But those are silver certificates. And there used to be gold certificates. But I didn't have any of those, couldn't find any. You probably can find a picture of them on the internet. So the USA's 90% silver circulating coins were phased out from being struck by President Lyndon Johnson, July 23rd signing of the Coinage Act of 1965. So in 1965, they were already stopping this, making the silver coins. And here's what President Johnson said the following on the day of the Coinage Act signing. He said, now all of you know these changes are necessary for a very simple reason. Silver is a scarce material. Our uses of silver are growing as our production, our economy grows. The hard fact is that silver consumption is now more than double new silver production each year. So in the face of this worldwide shortage of silver and our rapidly growing need for coins, and the only really prudent course was to reduce our dependence upon silver for making our coins. Since the life of a silver coin is about 25 years, we expect our traditional silver coins to be with us in large numbers for a long, long time. If anybody has any idea of hoarding our silver coins, let me say this. Treasury has a lot of silver on hand, and it can be and will be used to keep the price of silver in line with its value in our present silver coin. There will be no profit in holding them out of circulation for the value of their silver content. Go to the bank. Tell them you just want a roll of silver dimes. You could ask for about $1,000 in dimes and quarters and nickels, and you might find one or two. You might find one or two silver coins now. You say, what happened? The people saw, okay, let's look at this. I've got two of those dimes right here. A dime. In fact, this has got, who was that bald guy? Eisenhower or Johnson? That might be Johnson. Who's on the dime? Roosevelt. I'm sorry, Roosevelt. All right, you see these two dimes? Okay. Don't they look the same? One struck before 65, and guess what? It's 90% silver. One struck in, I don't know what the date on this is, if I can even read it, 2019. It's got a little copper in it. Okay, we'll get into that in just a second. We're going to look at those again. But you see what they did? Not only did they give you reserve notes for the silver certificates, but they barely gave you pot metal for coins. That's what's happened. 90% silver coins are being collected and hoarded by those who know their worth. Anybody got any sense? Because he was unable to keep silver low to the value of those coins. They're now worth more than their face value. So as a result, here's what happens. Even without anticipation of an increase in the price of silver, the proposed change in the nation's coinage presumably result in the operation of Greshams Law. That law, which describes a phenomenon that has been observed for many centuries before and after it was formulated by Sir Thomas Gresham in the 16th century, states that when two coins are equal in debt-paying value, but unequal in intrinsic value, the one of lesser intrinsic value tends to remain in circulation and the other tends to be hoarded. In other words, bad money drives out good. Bad money gets to stay while that which is valuable, it makes sense, doesn't it? I mean, if somebody offers you a dime that's pot metal or a dime that has silver content and it's worth more than its face value, which one would you take? So everybody started picking out the silver. And they started melting it down. Everything started happening to it. You can still buy it, but you're not going to buy that dime for a dime. It's going to cost you a lot more. In fact, let's get into that a little bit. Let's see. I'll make sure I'm not getting too far ahead of myself. Okay. Let's look at this a second. Now, I got this fresh off the internet. You can go to a website called Coinflation. Coinflation. It'll tell you all this information. It tells you daily what these are worth. Now, right now, gold, silver, and copper are pretty low. But just to give you an idea of how this thing is, let's just take the penny, okay? If you have a penny that's, I think it's before 1982, something like that, it's made of 95% copper, okay? If you have a penny after that, it's 95% zinc. The worth of this zinc one, which is 97.5% zinc, is worth 0.006. That penny is only worth 0.6 of a cent by the metal that's in it. This penny, the copper one, is worth 0.0185. Now that's present money. And the copper price per pound is $2.78 a pound. I've seen it at $5. So you almost triple it. Almost triple the value. So if you own a copper penny, it's worth 3 times its face. Just because it's copper. But they're not making copper anymore. They're making 97% zinc pennies. All right? Let's look at another one here. Here's a nickel. And this is a 1943 war nickel. Now, how I know that is an official war nickel is when they minted these, they made sure, even if it was in Philadelphia or San Francisco, they have a big mint mark on the back, right at the top of the Capitol building. And there's that big S back there. That tells me, And I was wrong about the content. It's not 90%, it's only 35% silver. They minted these during the war because they had a more need of a nickel than they did silver. So they minted these war nickels, 35% silver. You say, what's this worth? This is worth, let me get my war nickel here. It's worth 86 cents in silver. 86. Now, remember, silver's really low. At one time, when silver was at its height of $48 an ounce, this nickel was worth $2.69. That means you could walk into a coin store, get the melt value, give you $2.69. In other words, not only will it still buy a cheap loaf of bread, it'll buy an expensive one too at times. You say, what's this nickel worth? This nickel is worth 0.04 cents. It's not worth a nickel, but it is worth 4 cents. That helps you. The 2 dimes, both got the same face on them, but one of them's made of a different material than the other. One's 90% silver, and one, I think it's got some copper in it. I measured these now, I can't find them. Oh, okay, let's go with the 90% silver dime is worth $2.75. When it's at its highest, $48 an ounce is worth $8. Now make sure I got this right. I'm sorry, the dime, $1.10, not $2. $1.10 for that dime. At its highest, it was worth $3.48. So what's this worth? This dime is worth 0.015, not even 2 pennies. Not even 2 pennies. All right, the quarter. I don't know if it fascinates me how they put this over on us. This silver quarter is worth, that's the one I was just looking at, $2.75, $2.75. I'm talking about yesterday. The price is this weekend on silver. It's worth $2.75. At its height, it was worth $8.69 for this 1 quarter because it's 90% silver. You say, what's this quarter worth? This quarter is worth 0.038, 4 pennies. 4 pennies. They've got you, you're carrying around worthless coinage, worthless paper. The intrinsic value is almost nothing on the coinage, and it is nothing on the paper. I just want you to know what you're carrying around. All right. This is a silver dollar, and this is a dollar. Yeah, how you pronounce that? Sacagawea. Okay? You'll see these everywhere because people love them. They're so small. I mean, why would you make a dollar look like that? I mean, it fits perfectly into a quarter machine from what I understand. I don't know if that was on purpose or anyway. But this is a Morgan, what they call a Morgan silver dollar. Okay? Do you know what the worth of this Morgan silver dollar is? Right now, at today's prices, it's worth $11.76. When it was at its height, $37.17. This dollar, Sacagawea, 0.0475 cents. Yeah, we could say something about it. We won't. Okay? Do you see that, though? At one point, you were carrying around actual precious metal that it encapsulated the value. Now you just have something that tells you, this is what it's worth. It's not really real, but everybody thinks it is. So therefore, it is. But what happens when they no longer think it is? And it ain't. Yeah. That always is. I know some people think, yeah, well, in the tribulation, which I ain't going to be here, you can't eat that. Well, let me show you over there in Revelation 18. You go to the end of the chapter and you see what's precious in the sight of men. The very first thing at the top of that list is gold. and the souls of men are at the end. Gold's still precious to this world, even in the tribulation. It may be cankered, that's because the Lord lets them have it. Let's talk about gold for just a second here. When we used to have a gold standard, I had a ring. I believe I got it from my parents. I can't remember really. And it was kind of dirty, and I thought it was some cheap ring. I don't wear rings, don't like to wear rings, and I thought it was some cheap ring. I was going to pitch it. And I said, I better check and see if there's any precious metal in that ring. And I'm looking all over it, and I say, oh, well, I believe that says 14 karat. So I found out that the band around it, 14 karat gold. That means it's 28 karat is pure gold, 14 karat is half as pure. Probably got some copper or nickel or something else in it. So I thought, okay, that's worth a little bit of money. And I thought, what is this thing in the center? What is that? And I kept looking at it, trying to polish it up. What is that? And of course I can't see, so I had to get out a magnifying glass. That's a $5 gold piece. That's in the ring. That's a Standing Liberty $5 gold piece. It says right on the back, $5. Now, you see, what does that mean? Well, one time, it was worth $5. And what $5 could buy you. Which, by the way, you say, well, what's it worth right now as of yesterday? Right now, as of yesterday, it's worth $407.55. That little coin right there. At its highest, I haven't even calculated that. But, it's a little bit more than what it is because it's close. Gold's close to it. But it's probably worth about $450. For that little coin, here's what I'm getting at. The same buying power. That nickel will still buy a loaf of bread. That dime will buy you a big candy bar about this big. That quarter, it'll buy a quarter's worth. That silver dollar will certainly buy you $1 worth. Or buy you about $10 worth. This gold coin right here, make a house payment with, you're right. I was told one time that if you took a $20 gold piece, that's a little bit bigger than that, but it's an ounce of gold, a $20 gold piece, at one point was worth $20. Now, what that $20 would buy you back then with that $20 gold piece was a full suit of clothes, a pair of boots or shoes, and a top hat. And I mean not a cheap one either. If you were to take a $20 gold piece right now and trade it in, you'd get about $1,725, something like that, about $1,700. And you could buy you a very nice suit, a very nice pair of shoes, and a hat to top it off. It still buys what it did back then. Why? The wealth is contained in the coin. It's contained in it. It's not eliminated. And what they've done today is they've eliminated they've eliminated the intrinsic value. It's gone. Okay. $1 now, okay, this is compared to 1913. $1 now has the buying power of what 4 pennies could buy in 1913. So how do you know that? Well, remember I said a nickel for a loaf of bread? Go to the store, try to buy a loaf of bread for a nickel. It'll cost you about $1 for the cheapest loaf they got. There you go. It's worth about 4 cents. In fact, I think it's over $1 now. Since 1913, okay, let me ask you this question. Why should something increase in value? If it gets better, then you can increase the value of it. Has a loaf of bread gotten that much better that it's worth 20 times what you originally paid for it? Actually, it's probably gotten cheaper. It's like a ball of air. I mean, you can squeeze it, about the size of a marble. So it really hasn't gotten better, but it's certainly gotten more expensive. And that's because of inflation. And I'll get to that in a second. But since 1913, the dollar has inflated almost 2,500%. Things aren't getting better, they're just getting more expensive. Why? Because the money no longer has its value. And you'll find out why that is in just a second. The example of inflation, if you loan a friend $100 on January 1st, and he pays you back $100 on December 31st, but the dollar has meanwhile lost 10% of its purchasing power due to inflation, your December 31st $100 will only buy what a January 1st $90 bought. The loan cost you $10. You lost money. You didn't break even. You lost money because it inflated away. You say, how does that happen? They keep printing it. The reason this has value is because there's not that much of it. It's a precious metal. Paper's not precious. And they keep printing it. And the more they print, the more they dilute it. The more they dilute it, the higher the inflation. Prices are going to go up on everything here in probably the next 3 months. Guaranteed. They may say, oh, it's because there's a lack of things. Well, that may be one of the reasons to drive it up any further, but it's going to go up because they've printed $5 trillion. If it wasn't the Federal Reserve pumping money in, it's the government. That money they're going to send you in that check, you say, well, that's my money, it's tax money. No, your tax money goes to service the debt. They had to borrow that money. You say, how'd they borrow it? They went to a computer and they typed in on zeros and ones and plugged it in and created that literally out of nothing. And what happens is when they do this, the whole world feels it. Why? Because everybody's stuck to the dollar. So when we inflate it because we have the right to just print whatever we want, we affect the whole world because they buy their energy. Oil is denominated in dollars all over the world. Nobody buys a barrel of oil without denominating it in dollars or paying for it in dollars. So when we do this, we take that poor fool that's making, not fool, but that poor guy that's making $2 a day and living off $2 a day, and we deflate it by 50 cents or 75 cents or $1. We kill them. And the rest of the world's getting tired. Man, Russia and China and Brazil and India, they call it the BRICS. They're getting together. Guess what they're saying? We're going to have our own currencies. And ours are going to be gold-backed. If they do that, and there's more of this funny money out there than there is in the United States. There's more out there abroad. If they kick this out and it comes home, well, if money goes on trees, then money would be worth as much as leaves. It's going to be like leaves on the tree. We're going to be flooded with worthless notes. That's exactly what happened in the Weimar when they kept printing and printing and nothing backing it up. That's why I took a wheelbarrow full to get a loaf of bread, and the wheelbarrow was more war that was in than the paper that was in the barrel. That's exactly what could happen. That's exactly what will happen eventually. You say, we'll be here. Maybe we won't. Maybe we will. Imagine you have, to give you an example of how this works, imagine if you have a ventilator in your basement, brand new in a box, okay? And this shortage is going on. How much would that ventilator be worth? A lot. I mean, a lot. I mean, your personal ventilator, you ought to be able to set your price on it. And I'm not for gouging people and buying up something, but you know, that's capitalism at its worst, is what that is. And I wouldn't believe in doing something like that. But if that was in my basement and that belonged to me, and I wasn't hoarding nothing, but I was for sale, I mean, I certainly wouldn't sell it for nothing. Market value, yeah, exactly. But now imagine everybody's got 10 ventilators new in the box in their basement. And you put your ventilator up for sale. What's it worth now? People are like, nobody's going to buy it. Why would they buy it? I got 10 in the basement. And what happens is that money becomes so voluminous, so much of it, they lose confidence in it. And they don't see any worth in it. So they quit taking it. Or they keep raising their prices. And once everybody starts running on the banks, getting out their paper, and here's the thing. If you own stocks, bonds, treasury notes, 401k plans, securities, checking, savings, IRAs, annuities, or any other investment, it is payable in fiat money. That right there. That's what it's payable in. Not these, Not this, not this, this. And if they lose confidence in this, what happens to you? You lose your wealth. Plain and simple. We are so close to that happening, it's frightening. We were headed that way before this coronavirus thing started. And that's what I want to just... So what's going to... It matters what you have. Not this. This. It matters what you have. It matters if it's food or something else. It won't hurt it. Yeah, it lost its worth. What you own, what you have, will only that's when it'll truly matter. Because this will start depreciating very quickly. They call it hyperinflation. You see, can it happen? It's happened so many times, and it's happened in a dozen countries. In fact, every system that has a fiat system fails eventually. They said they last about 40 years. I think we're at 43 or 44 years now. We're on borrowed time. When, before the coronavirus, the Federal Reserve, and you need to keep your eye on them, you know when something's up and at 12 midnight, they start infusing money into the system. Y'all heard of that? That repo type thing? That's just another name for quantitative easing. What are they doing? They're printing money and throw it into the system. Now they're doing this to keep the economy going and to keep things going so that people don't lose confidence and they keep flooding. They haven't learned. They'll never learn. You cannot keep doing that. Now they're doing it even worse than ever because of this corona thing. They were doing this before it ever happened and they were about down to zero. Now we are at zero interest rate and they're printing money galore. What do you think is going to happen here? Yeah. It's inevitable. And I just want, you say, why do you teach us? Because I think every Christian should know that. That guy at that restaurant did not know that what he was carrying around in his pocket was just paper. Just paper. That's all it is. And the minute you no longer recognize that as money, I could have a boatload of it. And you'd be like, I don't need that. I don't want that. Give me something that's of value. What would it look like if this whole world just went bottoms up? All the currency. Once the dollar fails, it'll all fail. All the way across the globe. I personally think this may be setting the stage for the Antichrist. I talked about that last week and I still believe it. You say, is it going to happen? I don't know. But when's the last time we had a pandemic where they shut down the world? When's the last time you've ever seen anything like this? And you'll notice that you can hear President Trump and his words. He is worried. We got to get this government back open. We got to get, at first, we may have to shut down, July. All of a sudden, no, we got to get this government back open. This is one of the greatest decisions of my administration. Why? Nobody knows how close we are to the brink. Nobody knows. Or at least they should. They should be paying attention. But I've seen these economic fellows, these guys supposed to be dumb as a stump, man. Not realizing that this thing goes over the cliff. When it goes over, it will mass poverty throughout the entire world. Your wealth starts disintegrating right in front of you. And then only physically what you own is all that you have. But if the bank owns it, really, truly, what do you think this economic recovery where this has been the best economy ever, do you really think everybody's got that much more money or there was a lot more money to borrow? A lot more things in the work because the bank loaned the money. That's it. Do you know our system is debt-based? To create that dollar, there has to be debt. The fact that they create it, it's instantly debt. There's nothing backing it up. We have a debt-based system. And eventually it will collapse. Next week I'm going to talk a little bit more. Now I'm bringing one more thing on it. And I'm going to put it to bed. You do whatever you want with it. But I thought you needed to know that and what your Bible says about real money. It's interesting that, I got no problem with this paper. I got no problem with that paper right there. As long as there's something backing it up. If we still had these, you wouldn't see any inflation. If we still had the gold standard, unless the product improved, the price wouldn't change. It wouldn't have to. Because you're not losing any value. You don't lose any value on your land. It just continues to go up. Why does it go up? Because the dollar is inflating. The dollar is inflating. That's the reason it all goes up like it does, because if you don't improve it, why should it go up? I've always asked myself that question. People don't think, they think, well, it's just wages go up with time. Most of us aren't making any more than what we made back then. It's just the dollar buys less. I mean, how many of you remember when gas was $0.25 a gallon? I remember going through an intersection there where the Dayton Mall is. It was 4 cornfields on all 4 corners. And my mother was driving a guy home that was on my brother's baseball team. And he lived across the street after the Dayton Mall was built, and he had an outside toilet. No kidding. Right across from the Dayton Mall. Was there for years. But I can remember that. But I can remember we had gas wars at that time, and gas was $0.25 a gallon. If you can imagine the beating they're taking right now, what was it the other day, $1.50, $1.25? $1.09, and about 59 cents of that is taxes. You can imagine they are taking it on the chin. I feel sorry for the frackers. But what'd you say? $1.14 in Bellbrook right now. It's incredible. I mean, they're getting hammered. Because you figure with inflation, they're not making anything. It's practically free. All right, I'll stop with that and keep those cards and letters coming.